Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Monday night edition of the program. We are live, we're national, happy to be here with you. It's truly a blessing. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to put an APB out, an all points bulletin, because I want to know where certain people are. I don't know about you, but there's a few people I haven't seen in a while. A couple of loudmouths, right? I want to put out an APB on United States Senator Adam Schiff from the state of California. That's right, Adam Schiff for Brains, the United States Senator from California. I haven't heard him saying anything. Now, when it comes to trashing Trump, when it comes to trashing the rest of us Americans, saying that Trump supporters and liberty-loving Latinos and the rest of us are domestic terrorists, violent domestic extremists, and everything else that he said about the people from January 6th and everything else. Well, you can always find them, right? He abounds. He's ubiquitous. But when it comes to him criticizing Karen Bass, when it comes to him criticizing everybody in his state like Gavin Newsom and their policies and being there as a support to the people that he represents, mum is the word. Now, maybe I just haven't seen the clip. Maybe he's been out there, and if it's true, then forgive me. But I think many of you will agree. I don't hear a whole lot of him. I hear a whole lot of Gavin Newsom making a whole lot of excuses. And you know who else is missing? The woman that is his counterpart in the United States Senate. Now, I don't think anybody knows her name. Nobody knows who she is. But nobody knows where she is either. Where are these people? Why are they hiding? Why are we not hearing from them? Why are they not pleading for Californians and Angelenos? Why are they not out there like Maxine Waters was? Honestly, she had some honesty, some contrition in her voice, making a plea to put politics aside. I don't know if you saw it on the news. I'll play the clip for you in a little bit. But where is Nancy La Bruja Pelosi, served as Speaker of the House, Mayor of San Francisco? Where is Nancy La Bruja Pelosi? Why isn't she out there helping put out fires? Now, I get it. She's an elderly woman. Okay, granted. But why isn't she using her massive influence? This woman can pick stocks better than anybody on the planet. Yet she can't get her once relative Gavin Newsom to do a better job as governor instead of saving the fish, maybe saving some people. Absolutely crazy. You know who else is MIA? Well, she was until I found her. My least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC, All Out Crazy. Now, AOC, All Out Crazy, you know what? I thought she would have been out putting out the wildfires in Los Angeles. But you know where she was? In Brooklyn, New York with Bad Bunny. Now, listen, I'm a Bad Bunny fan. I like it. I like the new album. Maybe later I'll play a little bump for you just to tick you off a little bit. But this isn't about what type of music we like. This is about being there. Now, I know somebody's out there saying, come on, Rich, it's unfair for you to call out AOC. She doesn't represent the people in Los Angeles. No, but she represents the crazy climate cult that dominates the thinking on the left that's leading to so much of what's going on. Gavin Newsom and the rest of these clowns, they want to blame Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of the United States. But the reality is it's the Green New Deal, the Green New Steel, the Green New Scam, right? That is what is hurting these people. It was that thinking, diversity, equity, inclusion. It was the left. I'm preaching to the choir here. Anyway, I want to know why we're not hearing from Schiff, why we're not hearing from the environmentalist left. Where's the Sierra Club? Why aren't they out there helping out the firefighters? I keep hearing about cops from all over the place, right? The boys in blue, they're volunteering to go out there and help. I heard of a fire company going out there to help, and their trucks didn't pass emissions, so they wouldn't let them into California. I hope that was hearsay. I hope it was wrong. I hope it was fake, phony, and fraud. But likely it was real. Because this is so characteristic of the left. Even with AOC here with Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny's an artist. He's not a politician. He might make a political statement here and there. But he's an artist. Right now, I think he's the most listened to artist in the world. Some of you are saying, what's a Bad Bunny? What does a misbehaved rabbit have anything to do? Oh, that's his artist name. But this guy's a global phenomenon. And his album is doing terrific. I can't fault him for wearing skirts on red carpets and saying things that might be a little risque. But I can fault someone that's elected by the people to serve the people in a government of and for and by the people and not do so. Right? Like AOC all out crazy. Instead, she's with Bad Bunny trying to fight imperialism. The imperialism of the United States, where she was elected to serve. Marxism is running amok in our country. And this is part of the issue. Right? I mean, this goes back to the days of Fidel Castro. Remember when Fidel Castro was first elected, when he first started his revolution, I should say, with Che Guevara and the rest of his merry band of communists. He said things like, I'm not engaging in any communism. I'm not a Marxist. I believe in what did he say? I believe in social justice, is what he said, way back in the 1950s. I'll play you some audio on that a little bit later as well. But that's the reality. Actually, I think I have time. I could play it for you right now. Listen to Fidel Castro in an interview that he did on the news, 60 years ago, 70 years ago.
What is your political philosophy? Are you a communist or a Marxist?
There is not communism or Marxism in our ideas. Our political philosophy is representative democracy and social justice in a well-planned economy.
How do you plan now to seize the power?
We are not fighting for power. We are fighting for finishing tyranny. And then our movement will seize power by free elections.
By free elections? Now, listen, and there's more of that clip. I'll play it for you a little bit again later. But I just wanted to use it to set the stage for what's going on. And again, I know I'm telling you something that you already know. But I think it's important that we have to shout it from the rooftops. You know, tell your neighbor. Tell your neighbor to tell their neighbor. People need to know. The philosophy that's running amok here is Marxism. It's communism. It's the left within the media, the left within academia. Now it's the left within the government in the city of Los Angeles, the left that's within the government, the state government in the state of California. People's lives are at risk. People's property are being destroyed. I tell you. And all of this, why? Because the Marxists are out there doing what they do best, talking smack. Yeah, I talk smack for a living too. But I would bet my bottom dollar my smack makes more sense. Because the reality is, these guys, look, Maduro. Today I see Nicolás Maduro, the dictator in charge of Venezuela. And one of the conservative influencers, ALX, he puts out that this guy is threatening to invade the United States by way of Puerto Rico, the birthplace of my parents. And he's broadcasting it on 480p, right? Like not even 4K, which is somewhat dated already. They don't have the technology. They don't have the ability. They don't have the resources. He actually said, I'm going to go to war, or we're going to take this back, or we're going to invade, whatever he said, with Brazil's army and with Peru's strength. He was already using other people's resources to get this done. I was going through my Instagram feed and I saw my friend Dania Alexandrino, and she said, like a good socialist, he's using everybody else's stuff. And ain't that the truth? Anyway, I want to get into that with Cheryl Chumley from the Washington Times. She's prolific when it comes to talking about Marxism and how it's influencing our culture, and more so how it's influencing what's going to happen in 8 more days. The inauguration of El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. That's coming up, and I'm going to be in town. I'll be in D.C. Maybe Friday through Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to saying hello to a lot of people, attending a lot of really cool parties, going to the inauguration, going to the rally. It's going to be a good time. Anyway, up next, Cheryl Chumley. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
In the week leading up to President-elect Donald Trump's second term, 13 cabinet picks will face confirmation hearings this week. It's the first time senators will have the chance to publicly question the nominees, and the process kicks off with one of the most controversial, Pete Hegseth, up for Secretary of Defense.
He certainly has the qualities that we need to lead the Pentagon. He has a distinguished record of service in the military.
New Senate Majority Whip Republican John Barrasso expressed confidence in Hegseth despite allegations of sexual misconduct, excessive drinking, and financial mismanagement. Accusations the former Fox News host denies.
Every senator gets to speak for themselves, and they will do that.
But some Democrats want Hegseth's FBI background check to be made available to the entire committee.
There is not a job that's more serious and more critical to our national security than Secretary of Defense.
On Wednesday, other nominees will face questions on the Hill, including Pam Bondi, the pick to lead the Justice Department, who was accused of spreading since disproven theories about election fraud back in 2020 when she was part of Trump's legal team. Hearings for some of Trump's other top picks are still not scheduled, including controversial pick for Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
So the Democrats are chomping at the bit, getting ready to block as best as they can, or at least give a hard time to Trump's nominees. And this is in true Marxist fashion. This is how it goes sometimes, right? And we've got to be prepared for that. We've got to expect that stuff. And somebody who expects that is somebody who is really well versed in this because she's out in the swamp, right? At least she writes for the Washington Times, Cheryl Chumley. I used to I wrote a column at the Washington Times a long time ago, and it was a great paper. It's still a great paper, and big shout out to everybody listening in Washington, D.C. We're on WMAL. We're live right now. Cheryl Chumley, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
You bet. So I wanna get your take on this report we just heard, because it seems like there's a number of key confirmations that are coming up, and there's a lot of support, I think, for these nominees. But at the same time, there's going to be some pushback from the left. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, whenever the opposing party has nominations come before the Senate, right, there's always pushback from the other side. But the problem is Democrats have just gotten knee-jerk reaction to anything that Donald Trump wants to do. So I think that these hearings are going to be more heated than even normal, even in the last few years, the last few times. And I just think that Trump in the end will probably prevail because he has the mandate from the American people. He won big, and he won after being under attack, both during his first administration and while he was a civilian.
Now, Cheryl, what do you think is going to be the most difficult nominee to get through?
Well, Pete Hegseth, right, carries a lot of baggage that the Democrats have brought out. And, I think that we're all going to see him answer some of the questions that really he's already answered through the media. But it's just going to be a more concerted, coordinated attack that Democrats are going to launch on him. And there are some Republicans as well who have some misgivings about Hegseth and his nomination. But I think those answers will be forthcoming from him. I think Kennedy is going to be somebody that sparks fiery rhetoric, maybe on both sides. There are some in the Republican camp who probably wouldn't pick him if they had a choice. But I truly see that all Trump's picks are ultimately going to be confirmed.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think, like you said, they're likely going to, do it kicking and screaming and push back as much as they can. Now, following that, do you think it's a toss-up between Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, or do you think one is going to be easier to confirm than the other?
I think Pam Bondi is going to be fairly easy to confirm. I mean, there's not a lot to oppose on her. She has a wealth of experience. Of course, Democrats are going to generate their theater and their circus because she is staunchly in the MAGA camp. But, her confirmation really, it's hard for me to imagine her not being confirmed. She just has too much experience to bring to the job.
Yeah, my thinking is oftentimes I think what the left does is the more experience you have, the more fodder they have to go through your record and say, well, in this case you did this, and in this case you did that, and it's kind of like more to throw at you. Whereas I think Akash Patel, they might not like him and may not like what he said, but they don't have a previous position where he was an AG like she was. Again, just my thought. So you're thinking she's the easiest one, and Akash Patel's going to face more obstacles.
I do, but you raise a good point because the left is afraid of competence. The way the Democrat Party works, it's all about who you know. It's all about helping other Democrats rise politically and accomplishing an agenda, and it's very little about competence. And all you have to do is look at California and the wildfires right now to see that that's true. So, anyone on the right, anyone in the Republican Party who brings forth a wealth of experience and is competent and is a determined and brilliant communicator, which describes Pam Bondi. She will face some tough questions and she will face attacks, but I think her confirmation is just going to sail through.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. I don't know if it's going to sail through, but I think everybody's ultimately going to get through. Now, what do you think some of the, dirty tricks, if you will, that the left has up their sleeve? What do you think they're planning?
I don't know. Really, honestly, I just think with the Democrat Party, it's all about raising suspicions. We saw this with Pete Hegseth. It doesn't really matter to them so much about what is truth versus fiction. All they do is throw out those suspicions. They raise some flags. They just bring forth a couple of talking points, and then they step back and they let the media run with it. And, really to them, truth doesn't matter. So when you ask, what do I see them having up their sleeves? It's just accusation, basically, where they won't allow the nominee to fully address the issue. They will cut them off just to keep the narrative going in the media about whatever issue it is that they want to accuse the person of.
Folks, we're on with Cheryl Chumley, opinion editor at the Washington Times. I'm going to make sure I get that right. And she's the author of God-Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths. We're going to talk about her book as well as one of her latest columns as well in the Washington Times straight ahead. Plus, your calls are coming up after that. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Of course, if you're streaming the show, that's at richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S. And we are coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation tonight. If you want to join us, 833-4-Valdez. But first, I want to just let you know that there's a guy out there. I like to call him Alejandro de Maliente Mayorkas. Now, this guy, he says that he is delivering the Trump administration the least number of individuals encountered at our border since 2019. Imagine that. Imagine that. This is a guy who said that they had operational control of the border, that there was no crisis at the border. This guy is a fake, a phony, and a fraud all day long. Anyway, Alejandro Mayorkas on CNN yesterday said this.
I think the movement of people, the migration of people is going to continue to be a challenge on a global scale. I will say right now we are delivering to the incoming administration here in the United States the lowest number of individuals encountered at our southern border since 2019. The numbers are lower than the average in that pre-pandemic year, and that is because of the decisive action that President Biden took in June of 2024 after congressional inaction.
That's it. The lowest number since 2019, Alejandro Mayorkas. I want to get to the bottom of this with our guest, Cheryl Chumley. She's the opinion editor at The Washington Times and the author of God Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths. Cheryl Chumley, what do you think of what Secretary Mayorkas just said?
Well, encounters is a funny thing, right? Because if you pull your immigration people from actually policing the borders and you set them up to provide health care for illegals crossing your border, then you're going to have fewer encounters stopping people at the border. And so the problem under the Joe Biden administration has been that they've opened the borders wide. They've messaged around the world, and especially point south, that, hey, come on in, America is open. And when people poured in, they pretended as if they were sending Kamala Harris to the border, as border czar, right, to tighten up the border, and they pretended that their numbers were better than Donald Trump's previous administration numbers. And so it's just been rife with lies and deceptions, and we all know that the border has been open under Joe Biden. The only reason taking action in June of 2024 is that polls just had him so low because people were fed up with the crimes in their communities from illegals in their community, and he had to do something about it.
You know, Cheryl, I agree with you 100%, and excellent analysis. And the only thing I would add to that is that doesn't include everybody that came through the CBP1 app, where they just kind of came through because they didn't have to encounter anybody. That, to me, is just remarkable for him to come out here and try and make it look like they've done something good at the border.
Yeah, it got so bad, if you remember, that Democrat Eric Adams in New York City started calling for the feds, Joe Biden's White House, to tighten up the border because he couldn't deal with all the illegals who were flocking to the city to take advantage of the tax-paid hotels, right, and schools that were set up to house these illegals under the Joe Biden administration. So, you know, everything that Mayorkas has put out there has been a deception, and really the American people obviously knew it because Donald Trump won handily based in large part on his promises to control the border.
Yeah, really interesting. Really interesting, the way they try to manipulate the truth. And Cheryl, I want to talk a little bit about your book before we wrap up here, because I want to make sure the listeners have a chance to learn about it and get a copy or get two copies of it, one to give away if they get a chance. God Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truth. Tell us more.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. So I wrote this book because, you know, we're deep into politics in this country, and it's very fiery politics right now, and politics are crucial. Our side has to win, but in order to keep America free for the long term, we have to fight the larger war. And the war in America has always been and always will be over the fight to retain our God-given individual liberties and rights. And so it doesn't matter who's in office. Trump, I'm so happy he's coming in for the next 4 years, but Republican or Democrat, the war is always to keep the American exceptionalism intact, which is God-given. And if we don't do that, then what we're left with is government granted, which is where we're at now.
Yeah. Folks, the book, God Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths. And I love the title because, like many,
Thank you.
I believe my liberty comes from God, right? It doesn't really come from the government. And because of that, I think so many people lose sight. And that's really, for me, that's the divide for so many people. I think we'd agree on a lot more things if we didn't have one group of us, I'm going to say, that believes in God, and another group of us that thinks there isn't a God. And not that you can't coexist, but it really creates this divide where they think that government becomes supreme, right? Now they worship at the altar of big government. and like Castro and Trudeau and the rest of these hard left Marxists that really just don't believe in people. They don't believe in something higher than themselves. They only believe in the power that they wield through their government, which in my eyes really comes from the people. And it's such a warped reality that they have for themselves, but it works for them, interestingly.
They only believe in the power of the state, right? So you can put it another way, God-given versus government-granted, or you can say individualism versus collectivism. And, in America, as so long as we keep the idea that our rights come from a creator, that gives us sort of an attitude that keeps government in its proper secondary subservient role to the people.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Cheryl, let everybody know where they could find you, find your columns, find your book, and keep up to speed with all your work.
I'm at the Washington Times. You can read my stuff there. Subscribe to my Bold and Blunt podcast. You can find me at X at CK Chumley, at Substack, Cheryl Chumley, and all my books are on Amazon right now.
Outstanding. Folks, check her out, Cheryl Chumley, Washington Times. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I'm grateful that you came on tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great being with you.
Likewise. And, folks, we continue straight ahead with your calls. And if you don't want to call, that's fine. But I've been asking for calls a little earlier. I'm going to tell you why. Because people have been messaging me on social media saying, you don't give the callers enough time. Let me tell you, few things trigger me like people saying that. Why? Because I feel I listen to a fair amount of talk radio, and I have for many years, and I feel like I'm not a mic hog. I'm really not. I like talking to people. I don't mind having a guest. I let the guest talk. I don't talk over the guest, right, for the most part, like 80% plus. And when somebody says I don't give people a chance, or when I don't allow someone who is a dissenting opinion, I've got to call them out on that. So again, if you want to disagree with me, if you want to state your business, whatever you want to do, open phones across America, the last two segments of the show, and that's coming up right now. 833-482-5337. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
But the thing is, for sanctuary cities and states, they complain about the cost, but they continue to add services. I want to show you California. As of yesterday, California has added a health care benefit for migrants. They are now going to extend free health care to migrants between the ages of 26 and 49. That's going to cover 700,000 additional people and cost the state $2.6 billion each year. Now, that's added onto that's added onto California's deficit, which is already $68 billion.
$68 billion. So you've got fire prevention cut by a truckload over here, right? $100 million cut from fire prevention, but you're using $2.6 billion for free health care for illegal immigrants. And, I mean, is it just me or is this crazy? Obviously it's crazy. This is what's going on. And you know what happens when you I hate to sound like this, but when people see what's going on, right? Because for the most part, I understand life because I feel like I used to be a normal person. Maybe not so normal anymore because of this work. But I get it. I enjoy being with my children. I understand what it's like to work and provide for your family. I really do. I get it. I've owned a business. I've hired employees. So I totally get this. And people just want to be left alone. That is the downfall of America, right? The fact that we are so, I just want to mind my own business oriented, that is what drives us apart. That's what gets us to just say hello to our neighbor from hey, how you doing? All right, take care. Don't come too close. And it kills that whole community aspect, and it creates for some of this, because we don't care. We're like, yeah, politician A, politician B, the red team, the blue team, it doesn't matter if it's the left wing or the right wing. They're on the same bird, right? You've heard all these things before, right? Democrat, Republican, the uniparty. Okay, got it. So all that does is create something called apathy. And when you become apathetic, you're like, you know what? Find me some UFC, find me some NBA, find me some NFL, maybe some baseball. Give me something to get my mind off of this, because I don't want to be angry all the time. I just want to enjoy. And listen, I do that too. I do it with music, right? I like hip-hop music. I like reggaeton. I like all sorts of stuff. Hip-hop is my genre. So I get it. Everybody likes an escape. People do it different ways. But it's that idea of just not paying attention that allows these people to get away with everything. You got a third of the people that vote, 2/3 that probably don't. So now that everything is burning, now the Californians and the Angelinos are eyes wide open, and they're listening to every word coming out of their politicians' mouths, and they're like, you did what? You cut fire prevention in the name of DEI? I only supported DEI because everybody else was supporting it, but if I knew it was going to cost me my house, I wouldn't have supported that. And everybody's up in arms. And I'm not just talking about, actors that are coming out against Newsom and the rest of it. No. I'm talking about people like publishers, like Patrick Soon-Shiong, who's the owner of the Los Angeles Times. And he admits it was a mistake to endorse Karen Bass for mayor. And he goes as far as saying, what seems to me, sounds like an endorsement of Trump. Listen to this.
Well, first of all, we'll accept some blame, right? So at the LA Times, we endorse Karen Bass. I think right now in front, that's a mistake, and we admit that. So I thought it was very important early on for me to come out. And I think we were one of the few to say competence matters. We got maybe 20, 23 million views to show how that was really dear to the heart of most people, whether you're right or left. And it's the interesting thing is that maybe we should think about how we elect people on the basis of, did they actually run a job? Did they actually make a payroll? Do they understand what it is? And rather than having professional politicians whose only job is really to run for office. There's nothing, I'm not trying to be disparaging, but I think we're at the stage now of the nation and the world, and there's many things we'll talk about even in healthcare, that you really need people to understand how it affects a man in the street, how it affects the working type of person. And I think President Trump in this election has understood that, and he's become truly the Republican Party, as you said, has become the Democratic Party in terms of addressing the problems of the man in the street. So competence absolutely matters. And I'm glad that that's been taken up.
Competence matters. The Democrat Party has become, or he said the Republican Party has become the Democrat Party in that it addresses the problems of the man on the street. This is coming from Patrick Soon-Shiong, owner of Los Angeles Times. Now, I could be of two minds here, right, and speak out of both sides of my mouth. I could say, wow, Patrick has woken up. Or I could say Patrick's a fake, phony fraud, and he's just a fair weather friend, speaking the way the wind blows, like Zuckerberg, like everybody else, sees the writing on the wall, sees I can make more money going this way. Obviously, everybody's all in for Trump. These people are an absolute wreck, so why be with them? I don't know which one I'm going to go with, because the reality is I don't know. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Even Maxine Waters. So when we come back, I'm going to play you a clip of Maxine Waters, and I've got Newsom talking about the little fish again. Unbelievable. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So all the crazy that's going on, like I said, Maxine Waters, she's out there telling Chris Cuomo on television that she wants to take more of your tax dollars, at the same time saying we've got to put the politics aside. Then you've got Gavin Newsom saying, look, we're doing this for the fish. It's the biggest dam removal in history. And by dam, I mean water, like a water dam. And then saying, look, we had the president helping us out. And he's trying to have everything both ways. I don't think it's going to work. People, I would love to see some numbers on him, like some favorability numbers. I don't think anybody is saying, what a great job. And I say that in contrast because, I worked in the Christie administration, Republican governor of New Jersey, from 2011 to 2013. And I remember during the time of Hurricane Sandy, Chris Christie had amazing numbers. People were really, everybody from every angle. He was at war with the cast of a TV show called The Jersey Shore, and a show which I did not watch at that time, but since watch and love. It's actually part of my escape that we were talking about before, of how to get away from all the crazy politics in my mind. And I bring that up to say this was a guy that was brash. He was abrupt. He was in your face. Many say rude, but when it came down to managing the hurricane crisis in New Jersey, the superstorm Sandy, people on every side of the aisle respected the way he did it because he was out there for days and days on end wearing the same fleece, sometimes not being able to go home. He was out in the field, and people saw that type of leadership, and they respected it. And I see clips of Gavin Newsom, and he's like shaking his shoulders left and right, doing this little shimmy, little weird dance, saying, we heard about people that are coming in speculating on real estate, and we got our legal team on top of that. What are you saying, sir? He's saying words like, the state is, at least my understanding of it, even if it's taken out of context, I believe the context he meant it in was that he's going to stop people from coming in to do land grabs with the legal team of the state. But as he's saying it, he looks like he's a little girl doing double dutch. I mean, it's really comical. You got to try and see that. It's on my Instagram story if you want to take a look at it. I shared it there. But the bottom line here is you can't do good by people if you're not doing good by people. Even if people don't like you, if they see you doing the right thing. Look at Trump. There were people that didn't like Trump, but they see that he did the right thing. It took the Gavin Newsoms and the Joe Bidens and the Que Malaereses of the world to show exactly what a good thing we had when El Trompito was in office. So we're 8 days away from the inauguration of El Presidente, and I can't wait. Folks, we've got another hour coming up. If this is the end of the road, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you live this Monday evening. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And that's the number if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation. You're welcome to do it. This is an honor and a pleasure to be with you. It really is. And I want to get into a few things. Obviously, on Friday, we learned about El Trompito being unconditionally discharged by Judge Merchan. You might remember hearing the judge have to utter these words. Listen to this.
After careful analysis, in obedience to governing mandates, and pursuant to the rule of law, this court has determined that the only lawful sentence that permits entry of a judgment of conviction without encroaching upon the highest office in the land is an unconditional discharge, which the New York State Legislature has determined is a lawful and permissible sentence for the crime of falsifying business records in the first degree. Therefore, at this time, I impose that sentence to cover all 34 counts. Sir, I wish you Godspeed as you assume your second term in office.
So El Trompito unconditionally discharged. They want to call him a convicted felon, but there was no sentence imposed. I tell you, the whole thing is a witch hunt. It's fake, it's phony, and it's fraud. And we're going to get into that with one of Trump's attorneys, John Eastman, who clerked for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. He was a law school dean and all of that. I mean, this guy is top notch. You remember he was at the center of a bunch of controversy because he said, we have some questions about these electors. And man, did that ignite a firestorm. We're going to chat with him a little bit down the road. But right now, I want to just go back to some stuff that's going on across the way, right, in California. Because on Friday, I think it was Friday, or maybe it was a Saturday, I saw this video, and you probably saw it too, of a bunch of citizens making a citizen's arrest, right? They grabbed a dude that had a blowtorch and was setting fires and, you know, committing arson. And they grabbed him, and the cops came, and they locked him up. And there's been many instances of this. There's even instances of people looting dressed as firemen. And, you know, one cop went to ask if a fireman was okay. And the fireman looked at him, and he saw that the fireman was handcuffed. Do we have that audio, Count Delacula? Listen to this.
Well, there were more than 24 arrests in the areas of the Eaton and Palisades fire, including one man who was impersonating a firefighter. LA County Sheriff Robert Luna said he encountered the man sitting on a curb. He asked him if he was okay, only to discover that the man clad in fire gear was already handcuffed. Deputies had caught him burglarizing a home. Several people have been arrested for violating curfew, and 2 people are in custody after attempting to set other fires.
So that's going on there, right? There's lots of fires being set. Matter of fact, one of the fires that was being set, that person also was arraigned and indicted. Here's L.A. County District Attorney Nathan Hochman announcing that Jose Carranza Escobar is now facing 3 charges of arson and faces up to 9 years in prison. Check this out.
The 4th incident is an arson incident in which Jose Gerardo Escobar has been charged. Do we have that ready? This is an incident that occurred in Azusa, where Mr. Escobar has been charged with 3 different arson charges. He is looking at 9 years in state prison. This is arson that occurred at Pioneer Park in the city of Azusa. It was investigated by the Azusa Police Department, who acted very effectively and very efficiently in apprehending Mr. Escobar. Mr. Escobar, as well, has been not only has been charged, but he is set for arraignment today. So again, with respect to all these charges, as I said before, these charges are not evidence, and they are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Again, that's the L.A. County District Attorney Nathan Hochman. So, I mean, just imagine all of this crazy going on, and you've got Maxine Waters out there, who's getting grilled by Chris Cuomo, of all people, former CNN anchor who's on News Nation now. And now she says, look, she's not in the business of protecting anybody. She just wants those tax dollars. Listen to this.
You don't want to talk about the politics because it's on your party, because the mayor and the governor are Democrats who arguably should have had the people in Altadena better prepared for this. They should have the resources more available so they don't need me to put them up because the state has been doing the work. And that if they've been preparing the situations for wildfires like they were made aware of, instead of cutting deals with PG&E and insurance companies, they would have prepared the state. That is not unfair criticism.
Let me tell you something. I'm not in the business of protecting anybody. Services cost money, and we should be willing to get the richest people in this country, the richest 1% that is protected, make sure they pay their fair taxes so that we can have the money to provide the services.
There you go. It's the money for the services. It's not Gavin Newsom and his fish. It's not the DEI, diversity and genderqueer people that are running the fire department. It's none of that. And again, I'm not saying that people who are genderqueer can't run a fire department. I'm just saying it seems like there's a big focus on that and not much of a focus on having water in the fire hydrant. I think that's a fair criticism. I don't know. Call me crazy. So, amazes me that she's not in the business of protecting anybody. You know, and at one point in that interview, she did sound a little bit remorseful. She sounded like she realized, look, we just need help here. But it didn't last long until she was triggered, because that's what they do here. The left likes to get triggered. And when they're triggered, all hell breaks loose. It really does. They don't care. They don't care who you are, what you do. They don't care what's right, what's wrong. They don't care about facts. They care about winning. They care about power. They care about getting their way. That's it. The only things they care about. So straight ahead, we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about the Trump case, the verdict. We're going to talk about Take two. We're going to talk about what this means, right? Because Trump, probably one of the most famous convicted felons, quote unquote, that is out there right now. But what about all the other people? What about America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani? What about him? He's still fighting case after case after case in court. There's still all this lawfare going on. What about John Eastman, who's scheduled to be with us in a little bit? What about him? He resigned his job as the dean of a law school at Chapman. He had to get indicted, like Trump. He was one of the co-conspirators. Excuse me. I mean, what happens to their exoneration? Right? Yeah. So okay, they threw out that January 6th case because of the court, the federal court. But still, who do they go to get their reputation back, to get their career back, to get their law license back? It's true, Trump has been treated unfairly like none other. But the fallout wasn't singularly on him. It was on everyone in his orbit. Some got it worse than others. You know, many of us only just lost friends, right? And gained a few enemies. But some people really got dragged through the ringer. So I want to learn what ultimately this means for some people. And John Eastman has a documentary that's out that really, really is worth watching. We're going to give you access to watch it for free. And I think it poses a real question. Is this lawfare or is this justice? Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And you got more than 40 people that have been arrested in the Palisades, Pacific Palisades fire evacuation zones. We'll get more into that in a little bit. Also, we're going to talk a little bit down the road about Blood and the Badge. This crazy story about the mob and the cops and killer cops, a big scandal. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to talk about something that's been going on because we got the Trump transition that's coming in this week. And we just, on Friday, we heard the verdict that came in from Judge Merchan of the unconditional discharge. And in essence, by way of the jurisprudence that they used to come up with this, this decision and the Supreme Court weighing in and all that, all things point to this whole thing was fake, phony, and fraud. And I think everybody's seeing it. Or at least I hope everyone's seeing it, or I hope a multitude of people are seeing it. And there's people out there like Kash Patel. He's been out there, banging the pots and pans. Over a year ago, he was on Fox News talking with Trace Gallagher about this. And I got a clip. It's very short, but I want you to hear it because he was talking about going through Congress to try and right these wrongs. Listen.
This is so unprecedented. It's just amazing that he would say that.
It's shockingly unconstitutional, Trace. It's great to be with you, and I'm here to announce on your show a measure that I'm working with Congress that should be Congress's bread and butter. And I'm calling for the subpoenas to be issued to Judge Merchan's daughter's company, who made $15+ million from the illicit information pouring out of her father's courtroom. I want to know the bank records because money doesn't lie. Yep. I want to know how deep it is and how much of it went to the family and how much of it is going to the family after this false conviction. And then we need to investigate the FEC actual violations that this judge and his family conducted, because he should never have been overseeing this trial to begin with because of the illicit campaign money that was flowing through there, and the unconstitutional due process violations are only the beginning. So America is calling for accountability of our judicial system, and Congress is the only lever that has it, and I'm hoping for one or two brave members of Congress that I'm talking to issue those subpoenas ASAP.
Again, that's Kash Patel. When he was a private citizen, right? And he was just somebody that was being investigated by the January 6th committee. Now he's headed for the FBI. But what he's talking about is important. It's all this unconstitutional lawfare and getting to the bottom of it. And this is something that our next guest knows all about. John Eastman was an attorney for President Trump. He was a dean at a law school, Chapman Law School. He clerked for Justice Clarence Thomas. He understands this stuff full well, and he found himself in the middle of a firestorm, getting disciplined by the bar. I mean, just everything that you can imagine was thrown at him, all because he gave his legal reasoning on the January 6th certification. So I want to get to the bottom of this because he's got a brand new movie, and it asks this, to me, pivotal question, which I think we all know the answer to: lawfare or justice? John Eastman, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Rich, for having me on. And I love your intro with President Trump praising you for the size of the audience you have. That's wonderful news.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, the movie's called The Eastman Dilemma, Lawfare or Justice. And I point out to people, it's not Eastman's dilemma. I've never had any dilemma about taking on that representation. I would do it again because the cornerstone of our system of government is consent of the governed. And if you don't have free and fair elections, you don't have consent of the governed. And we had lots of evidence of illegality in the conduct of the election that needed to be exposed, that the courts were refusing to hear. And so the movie explores all that and the legal and constitutional arguments in favor of what I was proposing to do about it. But then more importantly, it highlights the lawfare that's gone on from the left, targeting President Trump and anybody that dared to shine a light on illegality in the election. I went through the longest bar disciplinary and most expensive disciplinary proceeding in history, and we're still not done with it. 10 weeks long, and then we've got 2 rounds of appeals. I'm indicted in Georgia and in Arizona. I was an unindicted co-conspirator in the nonsensical criminal indictment that Jack Smith brought against President Trump in D.C. I mean, they are doubling down in the states because they can't go after him at the federal level any further. They're doubling down in the states to go after anybody that ever dared shine a light on illegality in the election. And it's an unbelievable abuse of our criminal justice system. And it's the very, Stalin's head of the Stalin's secret police, a guy named Lavrenti Beria, said, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. You find me the man you want to take out and I'll figure out a way to make the law get him." That's what we prohibited in this country. You're not supposed to identify somebody you don't like and then scour the law books to find something you can pin on them. That's not the way justice is supposed to work. And attorneys have been warned against that throughout our nation's history, but that warning has now become the playbook. It's an egregious abuse of the criminal justice system that we've been observing.
Folks, we're on with Trump attorney John Eastman. And John Eastman, I'm listening to you, and kudos to you for keeping a positive attitude, because this is something not everybody goes through, right? Getting put through the ringer like you have. But you mentioned that they're doubling down at the state level because they can't get you on the federal level because the Jack Smith stuff, he quit his job, he went home, that's all done. It's not happening. So is all of the federal actions against you, have they all dissipated, or is there still some lingering, or is it just states?
Well, I was just an unindicted co-conspirator in the Jack Smith case. So technically, they could seek a new grand jury indictment against me.
But you were indicted in Georgia.
But I'm indicted in Georgia in a state court. I'm indicted in Arizona in the state court, and there are scandals involving both of those things.
Fannie Willis.
The soap opera we all watched about Fannie Willis paying her lover almost $750,000 and then going on fancy cruises and vacations and supposedly paying him back in cash thousands of dollars. And then the scandal in Arizona is more egregious. The Attorney General, we learned last month, hired a violently anti-Trump partisan organization called States United Democracy Center. This is the same group that brought the bar complaint against me in California. She hired them to prepare the prosecution strategy. That's like hiring a fox to create the safety memo for the chicken coop. It's insane.
John Eastman, I want you to hang on right there because we're going to come right back and continue this conversation. I think the listeners need to know exactly what's going on. And I also want them to learn about your film. He's got a great film that's coming out. And again, the focus of the film, is it lawfare? Is it justice? The John Eastman Dilemma. You're going to learn all about it. We've got a clip of that, and we're going to play it when we come back. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming back with former law clerk to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, former attorney to President Trump, and former law school dean John Eastman. He's a senior fellow at the Claremont Institute, and he's our guest. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez coming right back with John Eastman.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The Fox News Decision Desk is calling Arizona for Joe Biden.
We can now project the winner of the presidential race.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country.
John Eastman, who?
Why is anyone talking to John Eastman?
Attorney John Eastman. Video from Fox News shows FBI agents seizing his cell phone.
They tell us lies, and they silence those who challenge the lies.
Former Trump attorney John Eastman, the father of the illegitimate theory that Vice President Pence could single-handedly overturn the 2020 presidential election.
What's most troubling to me is we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to raise these questions. If you do, Like I said, the heavens open up against you and all the forces come against you. Believe me, I know.
John Eastman, who?
That is the trailer for the film, the John Eastman Dilemma, Lawfare or Justice. And I think this is a fantastic question that the film poses. And at the end there, Rachel Maddow saying, John Eastman, who? Excuse me, Rachel Maddow? It's more like Rachel Maddow, who? John Eastman has been one of the top attorneys in this game forever. I mean, way before any of the Trump stuff, way before the 2020 election. By my admission, right, at least by my standards, by my view, my opinion, the great one, Mark Levin, very well versed in Constitution, great radio host, my mentor, was behind the scenes there as Mr. Call Screener for a long time. And one of the handful of lawyers that he would call on every now and again for specific matters, John Eastman amongst them. So John Eastman's been well-known, well-regarded attorney for a very long time, number one. Number two, the way they make him seem, right? They make him seem like a crackpot. They did the same thing to Rudy Giuliani, and I think the whole thing is just out of control. But I want to get into the film. I just wanted to address that quickly and bring our guest back. John Eastman, welcome back, sir.
Thanks very much, Rich. Yeah, Rachel Maddow. When you only read leftist propaganda, then it's not a surprise she doesn't know who I am. But she should check in with the Florida legislature from the 2000 election controversy. They brought me in as an expert to help them in that controversy. So I've been around the block a time or two. She, if she was half the reporter she thinks she is in her own mind, she would know that.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's not a ton of people that get to clerk for Supreme Court justices. And I think, people who've been able to do that, they have a unique expertise. Doesn't mean you're qualified to do everything, but it means, a heck of a lot more than a lot of other people. And, I just think the left is out of control. But I wanted to address that because, to me, this is part of what they do, right? They try to undermine people. They did it to so many people. They do it to Trump on a regular basis. This is part of what they do. Whereas I think on our side, we try to use logic. We try to use the truth. We try to use common sense to make a case for something, kind of like you did. You said, look, there are some irregularities. We saw illegality in a bunch of different places. Maybe we should not pursue this. That made sense to me. I know that the courts weighed in on this, and they kind of had a different opinion. Tell us about that when they with the what were they calling it? The alternate elector scheme. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the fake elector scheme, they call it.
Fake electors, right.
It's doing exactly what John Kennedy's electors in Hawaii did in 1960. Richard Nixon was certified as the winner in Hawaii in 1960. There was an election challenge still pending when the electors had to meet. The only authority Congress has over the whole process is to set the date for the electors to meet, and the Constitution requires it to be the same date throughout the country. So if they didn't meet on that day and the election challenge that was pending went their way, there's a very strong argument that they could not be counted. And so they met on that day. They were not certified. They sent their electoral votes to Washington, D.C., claiming to be the certified electors when they weren't. But it was contingent, and everybody understood that. And when the election challenge did go their way, those electoral votes were there to be certified so that they could be counted. That's exactly what the Trump electors did. And it's just a fake narrative put out by the media and the hardline left in this country, calling it fake electors as if there was something untoward about it. Everybody knew they were contingent. There was nothing, behind the scenes or in a smoke-filled room that did this. It was all done very publicly because there were still election challenges pending. And if any of them had gone Trump's way, as they should have, in my view, given the illegality that occurred, then those electoral votes could be counted.
Makes sense to me. And why did this not go? What's your theory on why the Supreme Court didn't? Why they came down on this the way they did?
Well, they didn't come down. They didn't do anything. They punted.
Right.
And there was a news story, I believe it ran in the New York Times, quoting a leak that Justice Alito had said at court conference, we have to take these cases. This is just like Bush versus Gore all over again. And John Roberts yelled back at him, it's not Bush versus Gore. If we take these cases, they'll burn down our cities. In other words, the violence that
Such a
occurred,
wuss.
the summer of violence that occurred in Portland and Kenosha, Wisconsin, and all these other places actually had its intended effect, which is to cower the courts away from actually looking at the serious illegalities in the election that occurred.
Unbelievable. Now, I'm guessing you addressed some of this in the film as well as, the lead up to all of this. How do you guys, end in the film? What is the answer to the conundrum that you pose? Is this lawfare or is this justice?
Well, it's pretty clear when you phrase it that way that it's lawfare. I think the bigger
injustice.
question is, I think the bigger question is the dilemma, and it's not Eastman's dilemma. I've had no dilemma here at all. It's the dilemma for my colleagues in the legal profession. Are they going to
next John Eastman who faces this?
What's that?
I said the next John Eastman that faces this.
Yeah, are they going to stand by and watch this lawfare occur, or are they going to stand with me and others and insist that we get back to restoring justice in this country? Unbelievable, because of anti-Trump mentality, there are too many people sitting on the sidelines or joining in the lawfare because it's going against Trump, and they'll throw off the entire rule of law in order to get Trump. And it's really stunning. And right now, starting January 20th, I think the guns of lawfare turn back on them and hold the people that have engaged in this egregious abuse of our legal system, hold them accountable.
Makes sense to me. John Eastman, let everybody know how they can see the film. I know that you guys just did a premiere at Mar-a-Lago, and you've got it available for streaming. Let them know how to see it.
So the premiere was amazing. President Trump came. He brought Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Marco Rubio was there. It was amazing. Hundreds and hundreds of people. And for a limited time, before the distribution platforms put it up for paid viewing, they can watch it for free streaming at MadisonMediaFund.org. MadisonMediaFund.org. And if people want to follow you and keep up to speed with all the work that you're doing, how do they follow you? How do they keep in touch? The best place is my Legal Defense Fund site, which we use as a blog with updates on what's going on. It's givesendgo.com/Eastman. People can help us stay in the legal fights as well by donating. They can send us prayers, but as importantly, they can read the articles that we post there, because they're articles that really seem to get what's going on and are helping us expose it. So use it as an education course as well. givesendgo.com/Eastman. Outstanding. Folks, check out the website, support the cause, and support this patriot. John Eastman, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I'm grateful for you taking some time to be with us tonight. Well, thank you very much for having me on, Rich. Appreciate it. You bet. God bless. And folks, we're coming right back with your phone calls, your thoughts, and a little bit more, because Nicolas Maduro, the dictator from Venezuela, he says he's going to invade the United States by way of Puerto Rico. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
A lot of people say I do a tremendous job. And Rich Valdez does a tremendous job, I can tell you that. He's a fantastic person.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Si te quieres divertir, con encanto y con primor, solo tienes que vivir un verano en Nueva York.
Un verano en Nueva York. That is one of the new tracks from Bad Bunny's new album. Bad Bunny being a big Latin music superstar who endorsed Kamala Harris. and who tends to favor a little bit of the Marxist policies that you see in some politicians on the island of Puerto Rico, like AOC, all out crazy. Now, listen, I am a fan of Bad Bunny. I enjoy his music, as you just heard. It's great music. That's a new take on an old classic by Andy Montañez with El Gran Combo, Un Verano en Nueva York. And the point here is that just like in the United States, we have patriots like Trump and lunatics like Bernie Sanders. The same thing happens, in our territories, like what I hope will one day be the 51st state, Puerto Rico. And Bad Bunny aside, there are others out there that believe that the United States is evil and imperialist. Not me. I love this country and I love the liberty that it gives us all. But those that don't like this country, like Fidel Castro way back in the days and many of his now successors, right, in other places like Venezuela, you've got the dictator there, I was going to say Hugo Chavez, Nicolás Maduro. And Nicolás Maduro today making this pronouncement with a smile, very Putin-esque, right? You know, Putin always tries to diss America while he's got, a little smirk on his face. This was quite similar. I'm going to play it for you. I guess it's in Spanish, and I'll translate it for you. But he says he will invade the United States by way of Puerto Rico to liberate them. Listen to this.
Así como en el norte tienen una agenda de colonización, nosotros tenemos una agenda de liberación.
Just the way they have in the North an agenda of colonization, we have an agenda of liberation.
Y la agenda nos la escribió Simón Bolívar. Está pendiente la libertad de Puerto Rico y la lograremos, Brennan.
Now, he says here, this was handed down to us from Simon Bolivar, and liberty is upon us, the liberty of Puerto Rico.
Con las tropas de Brasil.
Hold on, and now he says we are going to do this with the troops from Brazil and resources from Lima, Peru.
Ir al frente. Batallón Abreu de Lima para liberar Puerto Rico. ¿Qué te parece?
With a battalion from Lima, Peru, and troops from Brazil, we will liberate Puerto Rico. What do you think? That's what he says. That's the end of the quote. What do I think? I think you are a pendejo. That's a Spanish word for Nicolás Maduro. That's how I translate that. And to think that I'm guessing he wants to be taken seriously. He's hoping to be taken seriously. I have no idea why he would make such a comment. Maybe he thought nobody was paying attention. Maybe he thought we wouldn't hear it here in the United States. Maybe he thought, hey, it's my buddy Joe Biden. He's on his way out. I don't know what he was thinking. But to say that you're going to liberate Puerto Rico from the captors, the United States, sounds like a threat to me, brother. And I think it was muy estúpido. Anyway, I want to go to your calls. Let's see who we've got. 833-4-Valdez. 833-4-Valdez. Pulling it up right here. I've got Zach in Pittsburgh on KDKA, America's oldest radio station. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich.
Hello.
So, why are you basing your entire show on our orange-faced, president to be?
Sure. Well, that's a simple one. Because when he wasn't the president to be, I based the entire show on a decrepit old man in the White House with white hair. His name, Joe El Baboso Biden. What we do here on America at Night is we talk about the news of the day. So you'll notice I took some shots at Maxine Waters. We talked about the illegal immigrants that are setting fires in California. We talked about lots of things, right? We've had a good amount of conversation tonight. But your friends, right, the left within the media, they love to keep Trump front and center in everything they do. Right? If there's a fire in California, Gavin Newsom says, well, because Trump, because the Republicans, right? They never take any accountability for anything. So as long as they keep Trump at the top of all the headlines, that's what we're talking about, Zach.
In the United States, quite frankly, I think would be excellent to give Mr. Trump a shot. But, and again, when you've come up with 50 or 60,000 lies in the last year or so, that makes it more difficult.
Well, it was actually a little bit easier. It was 312 electoral college votes. And I don't know, was that whatever million, 76 million, 80 million, whatever the big number was for him at the end of the day. I forget what it is right now. All those numbers seem to be a lot higher than the 50,000 lies that you're crying about. Why are your panties in a bunch, Zach?
Well, first of all, the electoral college really is the most absurd thing in the world.
Well, let me ask you this: from where does this absurdity come? Have we ever elected a president that did not go through the electoral college?
We have not, but that doesn't mean that we elected the proper person.
Well, then what does it mean? I mean, because we had an election, it was free, it was fair. Barack Obama said it was free and it was fair. Joe Biden thought it was free and it's fair. Shoot, Que Mala Eres thought it was free and it was fair. So, again, why are your panties in a bunch?
He actually did win this election because he won the popular vote. He won the vote, so he did win.
Man, this is going better than I thought. You're right. He did win. He won it all. And in 7 days, we're going to swear him in again at the inauguration. Zach, I hope you're there. If you do, you see me, give me a high five. Hopefully you've gotten the knots out of your panties by that day and you're doing a lot better. Thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody listening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on KDKA, America's oldest radio station. And folks, we're coming right back. Your thoughts and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Interview with the USA Today earlier this week, the president talked a bit about preemptive pardons, saying that they are still potentially on the table. Can you speak a little bit about the scope that he is considering when it comes to that, and if he's any closer to this?
So we have been saying that the president will have more to say, more to announce on pardons and commutations. So that is, we have 10 days to go. So certainly that will be very soon that we'll make those announcements. I'm not going to get into the scope. I'm not going to get ahead of the president, but we will be making some more additional announcements.
They're going to make more additional announcements. Okay, Karine Jean-Pierre. So Biden is going to be pardoning more people. What a surprise. I mean, lots of presidents do that at the end of their term. But one interesting request came from former Trump attorney turned state's witness, tried to do him in dirty and still went to jail, Michael Cohen. This guy's like a gangster. Listen to him.
Regarding the pardon, yeah, I put in the application for a presidential pardon because I believe that Joe Biden has the same responsibility to me that he had to his own son. And I would expect that the same exact pardon that he gave his son has to go to me and to anybody else that's on that enemies list, whether they want it or not. Because I assure you, solitary confinement where I did 51 days sucks.
Solitary sucks, he says. You know what else sucks? You suck, Michael Cohen. The only way I'll take that back is if you come on the show and we have a conversation. If you're listening, give me a call, Michael Cohen. Speaking of gangsters like Michael Cohen and criminals, I got a story about the mob, and a former New York Times editor is going to tell us all about the mob, killer cops, and so much more. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Monday night edition of the program. It's another hour for you guys, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the phone number if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation. Looking forward to speaking with all of you. I know there's a number of you that would like to get on the line tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. Had a few of you earlier, and looking forward to speaking with some more of you. And a bunch going on, right? Obviously, we still have lots of big stories that are continuing. The wildfires continue. The Democrats and their failures continues. New stuff on the international front. You've got Nicolás Maduro. He is the dictator in Venezuela, and he says that he is going to invade the United States by way of Puerto Rico, and he said it with a smile. And I think some people don't take him seriously because he said he was going to do it other people's armies. And I'm guessing he meant it as a joke or a tongue-in-cheek comment. But the point is, this happens when people don't take you seriously. This doesn't happen when you have a leader that people do take seriously. And that's important. So thankfully, we are 7 days away from that happening. Earlier, I said 8 days. That was my bad. That was yesterday, 8 days, 7 days away. I will be in Washington, D.C. for that, so I'm looking forward to the parties and the people and saying hello and taking pictures and all that fun stuff. Really am looking forward to it. And Chris Wray from the FBI Director Chris Wray, outgoing director, says that before he resigns, he has revealed now that China has penetrated America's critical infrastructure. Ain't that something? China has gotten into our infrastructure. Ray saying that during an interview that he had, that we're just waiting for, or they're just waiting, or lying in wait, as he put it, for an opportunity to cyber attack at a time and place of China's choosing. And this was on 60 Minutes. And I tell you, this is one of those things. I look at this and I think, well, thank you, Christopher Wray, for being the FBI guy and letting us know about the threat. But I mean, last I checked, I thought the FBI was, doing fingerprints and DNA and bank robberies and stuff like that. And I mean, again, of course, they became the big counterterrorism people after 9/11. But I feel like that it's misplaced. And we had Agent Tom Baker on, former Special Agent Tom Baker of the FBI, who wrote a great book about how the deep state has really corrupted the FBI. And he's really quite a gentleman. He really is. He doesn't like to take shots at people. He's very gracious, even in his critiques. He's nothing like me. And I got to tell you, he also, had disdain for what's going on with the FBI today, the organization that he spent his life in. And realizes that they've gone so far away from their roots. And the reason that they've gone away from their roots is because they've become this counterintelligence agency. And that's the bottom line there. If they go back to their roots and do what they do as a federal investigatory body, and I think that's what Kash Patel is going to do, is he decentralizes them once he is confirmed. I think we're going to see the FBI be great again. But we just got to give it time, Swamps don't get drained overnight. And speaking of swamps, the swamp is still coming at Pete Hegseth. Hegseth still fighting tooth and nail for his nomination to serve his country. And what's happening now? Who's got his back? 500 Navy SEALs. These are veterans that are coming into D.C. to support Pete Hegseth's confirmation as Secretary of Defense. So kudos to all the veterans out there, the Navy SEALs, and veterans of every branch of our military, and their support of future Secretary Pete Hegseth. Now, you know who else has indicated their willingness to come and serve? The cops. The officers from places all over the country, thousands of police officers nationwide, are now willing to attend and support President Trump on Inauguration Day. They're willing to do it in uniform. They're willing to get sworn in as D.C. police officers, if need be, to help out with what's going on. And Pamela Smith, the police chief of the Washington, D.C. Metro Police, made that announcement today. Listen to this.
Our entire police department will be activated for the presidential inauguration. In addition, we'll be reinforced with nearly 4,000 officers from across the United States who were generous enough to raise their hands and commit their time to assist the Metropolitan Police Department. Those additional resources will be deployed to manage traffic, secure dignitary routes, and ensure public safety in our city. I'd like to pause and thank those officers who are coming to our city, taking time away from their families to ensure the safety and security of this event. Their commitment to our country, to this city, and their law enforcement partners are admirable. They deserve praise from us all.
They do. And I want to take a moment to thank everybody that serves in law enforcement, because it's obviously for me, it was something that's always been near and dear to my heart. I'm the youngest of a bunch of siblings. And I can tell you that as a kid, I always wanted to be a cop. One of my older brothers, Johnny, was a cop then. My brother Albert became a cop. And I was like, I want to be a cop. And when I was old enough to do it, they were like, you're in business. You have so many different skills. Just stick with what you're doing. And I don't want to say discouraged me, but dissuaded me for sure. And likely was probably the right thing. I likely wouldn't be on the air if I had become a cop. But they were. And they had quite the career. Both of them retired after 20 years on NYPD and went on to do other things. My brother John went on to become a federal agent, which he just retired from this past November. My brother Al, still doing hotel security. He's director of security at several big hotels in the city. And he's had a remarkable career, and he's really good at what he does when it comes to threat assessment and all of that. And, Manhattan hotels, they're terror targets, so it's takes a knowledgeable cop to run it. Anyway, so kudos to them and everybody who's served in uniform, as well as all those veterans that are coming in to support Pete Hegseth and President Trump and the America First agenda. Kudos to them. My brother Robert, Bobby, who went to be with the Lord not this November, but the November before. It was a year this November that we lost Bobby. Was a United States Marine, and in my heart, I have a lot of space, a lot of love, a lot of affection for those in law enforcement, those in the military. So thank you for everything you do. And I will pivot here to the next segment, because I want to talk about something. Speaking of cops and all of that stuff and bad guys and good guys, we've got an interesting story that's coming up. We're going to talk about the mob, killer cops, and a bunch of other crazy stuff that happened in New York, of all places. And Michael Cannell, former editor at the New York Times, is going to tell us all about it. He's got a book called Blood and the Badge, where he put all of it together. Again, the mafia, 2 killer cops, and a scandal that shocked the nation. We're going to talk about that next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
There is more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our late night national town hall conversation with you all, we the people. And I want to give you the phone number if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, taking your calls until for the next hour. We're taking your calls. Right now, I want to talk to our guest. Our guest has a really juicy story. It was in the headlines, and he wrote a whole book about it. Michael Cannell, former editor at the New York Times, covered this brotherhood that was betrayed, right? It was a really interesting story of the mafia, 2 killer cops that served as a crystal ball for the Lucchese crime family in New York until they retired from the police department in the early 90s. They retired to Vegas collecting NYPD pensions. And really, it's just the stuff that a good mafia thriller is made out of. And he's going to explain it all to us. The book that he's written is called Blood and the Badge. Michael Cannell, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Rich. Great to be here with you.
Likewise. So tell us about this. Is this something that you covered in the media and then wanted to bring out in the form of a book, or something that you saw in the media and took an interest in? How did that unfold?
Yeah, it's a story that had been written about before in pieces. It had been covered by the New York newspapers. Some of the people who were involved in investigating these two corrupt cops had written a book. Nobody had really written the big book, the big comprehensive book. And after a little bit of time had passed, I got the green light from my publisher to really go to work on this story. And I uncovered a lot of reporting and did a lot of interviews that hadn't been done before. And there's still some question marks in the story, but I think I can fairly say that it's the most comprehensive and accurate book that's been done on this writing that's been done on this subject so far.
Now, obviously, this stuff was there was some coverage of it. People know somewhat of the story, those that saw it and followed it at the time. But your research led you to something new, something different. What'd you find?
Right. I should back up and just explain that this is the story of two corrupt cops who were secretly on the mafia payroll. They were feeding the Lucchese crime family information about who was under investigation, who was about to be arrested, but most importantly, who was an informant, who was a rat, who was a squealer. And these two cops then helped the mafia facilitate the murder, the assassination of these squealers. So a lot of the reporting that I did came from the law enforcement figures, the detectives, FBI agents, and DEA agents, almost all of whom are now retired and willing to talk about it for the first time. I think that's really what made the difference, is that these men and women who had worked on this case were really willing to open up and talk to me about it.
Tell us a little bit about the culture of violence and how they operated, whether they were remorseful or not, and what was it like having two cops on the payroll?
Yeah, one of these cops was named Louis Ippolito, and he was born into a mafia family. His father was a Gambino capo known as Fat the Gangster, and his uncle was known as Jimmy the Clam. And these are names like right out of The Sopranos, right?
Yeah.
But they were bad guys. They were serious guys. And Fat the Gangster, no surprise, was an abusive character and abusive to his son. And Louis Ippolito grew up in a household of violence. And the way he rebelled against his family was to join the police department. People couldn't believe it when his family couldn't believe it when he joined the police department. It was outrageous. And you can separate yourself from your family, but sometimes you can't always. Your family reels you back in, and that's what happened to him. He came back to the mafia. He did favors for the mafia, and he eventually became employed by an underboss of the Lucchese family known as Gaspipe Queso. And Gaspipe Queso paid Ippolito and his close friend and partner in the police ranks, a man named Stephen Caracappa. He paid them $4,000 a month for their services. And then when they helped to facilitate murders, he would pay them extra.
They got a bonus, the murder bonus.
They got a bonus for being involved in killing people.
Wow. So how does this whole thing unfold? It seems like they've got everything worked out. They've got the cops on their side. They've got the crime all organized. They're operating this massive RICO operation. How does it end?
Well, Louis Ippolito was caught handing a police file, delivering a police file to a Sicilian drug smuggler called Rosario Gambino. And the police raided Gambino's home in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and they found that he had his own police file. He had his own police file in his home, and Louis Eppolito's fingerprints were on it. Amazingly, when Eppolito was brought before Internal Affairs, the case was dismissed. Later, Louis Eppolito's patron in the Lucchese crime family became an informant and was set to testify against him. However, Gaspar Casso, the informant, started to mouth off about some of the other informants. And then the prosecutors felt like they had a problem. Gaspar Casso became toxic. They felt like they couldn't put him on the stand because he was going to say that the other informants, the other witnesses, were liars. So Gaspar Casso went straight to Supermax prison. And who benefited from that? Louis Eppolito and Stephen Caracappa benefited from it. So at that point, the feds knew what these two corrupt cops had done, but they let him walk. They let him get away. And they might very well have gotten away with it, except that a detective, an NYP detective named Tommy Dades, happened to stumble into some evidence while his career was winding down. He was planning to retire. And Tommy Dades revived the investigation, working through the Brooklyn DA's office. And the two cops were eventually convicted. The judge threw the conviction out on a technicality. So once again, it looked like they were going to get off scot-free. The conviction was eventually reinstated by an appeals court, and they went to prison. They both died in jail.
Wow. Folks, we're on with Michael Cannell, and the bad guys lose in the end in this one. Former editor at the New York Times. And Michael, I want you to let everybody know how they get a copy of Blood in the Badge, and how do they keep up to speed with you and all the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me that, Rich. It's the book is actually published tomorrow, so that's January 14th. You could buy it from any place that you would normally buy a book, and if you want to find out more about it and other books that I've written, your listeners can go to my website, which is michaelcannell.com. Cannell is spelled Cannell. So that's michaelcannell.com.
Outstanding. Folks, check out michaelcannell.com. Pre-order a copy of the book. I'm pretty sure you can get it in about half hour because it'll be tomorrow in about a half hour in many parts of the country. And keep it locked right here, folks. We're coming right back with more your calls and everything else. Michael Cannell, thank you, sir. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
What's up, America? Welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company till very late tonight. And 833-482-5337 is our phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I'm going to get to your calls in a moment. But first, I want you to hear something that I heard online. And I was taken aback. It was so weird. Listen to this.
If a man wants to get married, he must cut off his arm and give it to his fiancée as a bride price. When a man loses his arm, his wife is very happy. The wife takes good care of her husband every day. Even the man's wife helps him to go to the toilet every day. This is a remote mountainous area in Vietnam. The men here have a very low status in the tribe. They have a very strange custom. If a man wants to marry a wife when he comes of age, he has to cut off his hands. Only in this way can he show his loyalty to his wife. A man with both hands intact will not only fail to get a wife, but will also be spurned by the whole village. They are even regarded as the oddest monsters in the village. But the men who have their hands cut off not only do it of their own free will, but they are proud of their lost hands. When they see people with normal hands, they laugh at them. The reporter was shocked to see this. You may wonder how they live. Men with broken hands are actually good at many things. They can play the piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. They can even take their wives shopping on an electric bike. Maybe this is true love. What do you think about this kind of marriage that sends an arm as a bride price?
What do you think? I want to know. I want to get your thoughts on this, and I want to hit the phones. If you've never called Talk Radio, please call today, because I'm so curious to know what people all over the country are thinking about. You fall in love with her. You see Shorty, and you think, oh, my God, I love her. She's beautiful. She's gorgeous. She's a bombshell. Let me chop off my hands and give them to her as a gift so she can wipe my butt for eternity. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Let's hit the phones. I want to know about this, and I'm going to get into the rest of this, because apparently in Vietnam, there's not only this amputee tribe, but they also smoke the human limbs. Yep, they eat cow dung in certain tribes, and they're polygamists. So we'll get into that in a second. But I do want to go to the phones. I've got some names and call letters here. Stand by. Things tend to freeze up around here. I call it the deep state. Let's see. We've got Joe is in Akron, Ohio on WLS. Joe, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
I don't know if you heard some of this stuff that that Karen Bass, the mayor of California or LA, is connected to these. There was I forget what the revolutionary gang or whatever it was, supporters or whatever, but they went down to Cuba. This is like in the late 60s, early 70s, and they learned how to make bombs and, do all kinds of stuff like that. And also, this woman is also connected to the M19 gang, which actually blew up the Capitol in 1983. The U.S. Capitol.
I didn't know about the connection to M19. I did know that she had a interest in communism, and I know she's been to Cuba, and that was a big thing a couple of years ago before she became mayor, when she was launching her bid for mayor and she was leaving her existing office. And, it was clear as day. Most people I know a lot of Cubans, and I can tell you that they love their country, but they all tell you things are bad in Cuba. And the videos they show me, it's not a wonderful place everywhere. I mean, there's some places in La Habana that are very nice, but outside of that, it's a really rough place to live with 13 to 14 hours per day of darkness, because there's blackouts half the day. And the fact that some people want to go there on vacation, like Bernie Sanders, and going to Russia and going to Cuba, and people that really just, they make it their business and their bucket list to go to all of the communist countries, they're suspect, in my opinion, Joe.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you got to wonder, how did this woman, we're just hearing about this now, was all this kept secret or whatever?
No, I don't believe she was. And I'll say this. I used to work with James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, and they put out a story before he left Veritas. Where they caught a high school teacher, and encouraging protests, BLM, stuff like that. And when they went to confront him off duty, like at his house, they went and knocked on his door. This guy answered the door wearing a crop top type tank top that had a hammer and sickle on it. I mean, this guy is an avowed communist, and he was teaching high schoolers. My point is, there are people in my part of town, like All Out Crazy, AOC, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, and in L.A., like this communist teacher, that really sympathize with communism. And they use the same lines like Fidel Castro used to use. And sadly, I think that the founders of BLM are amongst them, and perhaps Mayor Bass.
What's that one? There's a disease or something, whatever, where I think Patty Hearst had it, where she sympathized with the people that they forced her to rob a bank in the early 70s.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's part of it or.
Yeah,
and
that's funny.
I don't know if you're
aware.
Worse.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you're aware of the two bombers or the two things that happened, one in New Orleans and one in Las Vegas.
Sure.
But there's something going on where they came from. Was it Fort Bragg? They changed the name to Fort Liberty, but there's been 40. It's the most deaths in any military base. And I think Fort Hood is the second worst as far as suicides and murders, and it's all drug connections and everything. And it's
I don't know if it's a rough neighborhood, rough leadership, poor leadership, or what. But, that gives me a good topic to kind of start investigating and bring a few guests on to try to get to the bottom of it. Joe, I got to hit a pause right here, but I want to thank you. A big shout out to you guys in Akron, Ohio, and thanks for listening on WLS out of Chicago. Shout out to you guys. And, folks, we're going to come right back with the rest of your calls. And, again, I want to know, what are your thoughts on this amputee stuff, right? Would you amputate one arm or two in order to have the woman of your dreams? And, ladies, would you be willing to help toilet this man forever? Because he's not going to learn with the stubs, right? I'm presuming it's going to be difficult. I don't know if after cutting off their hands, if they're able to get prosthetics or a hook or some other device. I'm completely ignorant to that. But I've got an article here from just this summer in thearchaeologist.org that talks about this, and we're going to discuss that when we come back, plus your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You always cover the best out there, and you cover it honestly, because you are the best out there.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Wow, we have some of the best listeners, some of the best callers out there. Thank you. Very gracious. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Looking forward to speaking with you about this and everything else. Of course, Open Phone Across America. That's a segment that the late, great Larry King came up with. Passed it on for 3 decades to Jim Bohannon, the first gentleman of talk radio, who's gone to be with the Lord. And it's a tradition that we continue here, you and me, every night, 833-482-5337. And what I want to talk about is, will you amputate your arms to get married? What you want to talk about is fine. We could talk about whatever you want to talk about when you call in. But I want to share with you a little bit from this article. It's in thearchaeologist.org, because I love to go off the beaten path every now and again and share a little bit of this. Like this, for example. One of their eerie traditions, right? Listen to this. They've got an amputee tribe that engages in the following: smoking human limbs, eating cow dung soup, and marrying multiple wives. The latter there seems like the most normal, right? Something you might have heard before. Listen to this. Now, the tribe is known as the Nung people. And they have some interesting encounters. One of the customs, is a very eerie one, was passed down through generations and continues to shock people, is that they will hang amputated limbs as an offering of sorts. Amputated limbs will hang above household kitchens, and they preserve them. They're like mummified, formaldehyde type of thing. They smoke them like you would smoke a rack of ribs in order to preserve it. It's fascinating. Really, this is the stuff that interests me. You tell me that we're using directed energy weapons to start wildfires, and I go, oh, come on, I've been hearing about that for 7 years. You tell me that we're cutting off limbs, and I'm all ears. I'm all ears. Now listen to this, cow dung soup, a culinary challenge in the mountains. On the next adventure, this particular archaeologist ventures into tasting the infamous Noom delicacy. It's cow dung soup. Yep. Cow dung soup, and he says that you need a strong mind and a strong stomach in order to tolerate this very peculiar dish. They also have a very intricate situation with polygamy going on. The living arrangement among them is pretty intimate. Their daily routines and societal structures are pretty normal, but that they have some personal stories and very candid conversations, and they go ahead and explore those mutually with multiple wives. And again, this is presumably a guy that has amputated his hands, so these wives are serving him in every way, and including his necessities in the men's room, which I think are just an interesting thing. Is that a commitment to love and marriage? Is that just a warped tradition? I'd love to get your thoughts. Obviously, we don't have too many takers on that topic, and I understand you're a little shy. And then the final one here that they've got on here is this. This guy, his name is Mr. Nach, N-G-O-C. I think I'm saying that. Nyuk. Hope I said that right. And this guy claims he has not slept in 65 years. I don't know if I believe that. But while the world record for sleeplessness is at just 13 days, Mr. Nyuk's vibrant and active life challenges science, right? He's challenging Fauci. He's challenging the science. And this is just one of the many different things that are going on with some of the obscure villages in Vietnam. And I just thought this was fascinating and wanted to bring it to you. Anyway, I'm going to keep it international. When we come back, we'll wrap up on our Nicolas Maduro topic, wrap up with your phone calls, as well as a couple of final thoughts from me. Again, that number, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. During my presidency, I've increased America's power at every dimension. We've increased our diplomatic power, creating more allies than the United States has ever had in the history of our nation. We've increased our military power, making the most significant investments in the defense industrial base in decades. We've increased the technology power, taking the lead in artificial intelligence and other technologies of the future. And we've increased the economic power, building the most dynamic economy in the world from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down. In short, Kamala and I took office, our nation had become stronger at home are stronger in the world. And now, America is more capable and, I would argue, better prepared than we've been in a long, long time.
Well, a man who needs no introduction, Joe El Baboso Biden, President of the United States, and he's there. He's yelling at you, speaking in a cadence like this because he's angry. He's angry at you. And he has all, those little things he breaks off into where, like, he'll yell, what about the single mom teaching her kids? And he goes off into these little tangents, and they're lies, right? I mean, if you believe, and if you can prove me wrong here, that Joe Biden has left America's power increased for us at every dimension, increasing our diplomatic power, more allies than the United States has ever had in the history of our nation. He just said that. We've increased our military power for what? Transsexuals? I think we've increased that. The most significant investments in the defense industrial base in decades. Yeah, we bought more bombs and put more money so we could send it to Ukraine. Unbelievable. We've increased the technology power, taking the lead in AI, deep fakes. What else? We've increased the economic power. Economic power of what? China? Building the most dynamic economy in the world from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down. Unbelievable, the stuff he's saying. But the reality is, this guy sucks. And all of America knows it. That's why Trump won as big as he did. And J.D. Vance was on with Sharon Bream, and he responded to these crazy statements. Listen to this.
Well, look, first of all, I wish Joe Biden all the best, but the fact is he has left us dumpster fire, not just at the border, but also with the economy. First of all, we know that prices are way too high for many Americans. We have to work every single day to stabilize prices for American families. But Shannon, everything that he's bragging about ignores the fact that he has added trillions and trillions of dollars to the federal debt during a time of peace. He has left us with bond yields, meaning how are we going to finance that debt? We have to sell Treasury bonds. And the Treasury bonds have gotten more expensive because of Joe Biden's policies. So you go issue after issue. Oil prices are now shooting through the roof in the final 2 months of Joe Biden's administration, in part because of decisions that Joe Biden has made over the last few weeks. He actually hasn't left the American people in good economic condition. That's why they made Donald J. Trump the president-elect of the United States. So we've got a lot of work to do. I remain fundamentally, and you know this, Shannon, I'll always be an optimist about our country. But I think that optimism has to start with a bit of realism. And the real truth is that Joe Biden has left us a dumpster fire. Donald Trump is going to have to put it out, but he's good at doing that.
Joe Biden has left us a dumpster fire. Literally and figuratively, right? When Trump was in office, he was telling Gavin Newsom, listen, fix this, fix that, do better job with your forest management and make sure you clean up those dead trees and whatnot. Biden's been here for 4 years. He hasn't said anything. Unbelievable. Anyway, let's go to Saratoga Springs, New York, WGDJ, and check in with Mel. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Rich. I tell you, I've had the opportunity to vote for a lot of presidents, including Nixon, and I cannot stand this idiot any more than any other person I've had the opportunity to vote for.
Man, you had very little time, and you said it so well, Mel. Can't stand him. He's an idiot. Mel, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. God bless you. Folks, hasta mañana, hasta la próxima. We're doing it again tomorrow. Make sure you tune in and make sure you call in early, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. There's more to come after this. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.